Hi, I'm Alyshah,
I'm Adam.
and this is
The
Sibling
Sibling
Connection.
Connection.
So today we're going to be reviewing Adam's favorite movie,
One of three.
Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring. So follow along, let us know if you agree with our ratings, and keep engaged in the comments below.
Basically, what we need to know going into this is Sauron, and his will to dominate all life on this earth.
Good guy.
And to do so, he created some magical rings. And so he gave 3 rings to the elves to enslave them. He gave 7 rings to the dwarves to enslave them. And he gave 9 rings to kings of men to enslave them as well. And when he was giving these rings, he wasn't exactly saying, that if you take these rings, you're going to be my slave. But basically, each of these rings had powers that they gave to the wearers. So the dwarves, they became richer. So the elves, they got longer life and, more fulfillment of that life. For men, they got more power.
Right.
And it fed into their greed. And so Sauron deceived them, though. Instead of saying, the fine print, he just gave them these rings. He went to Mount Doom in Mordor, his own kingdom, and he crafted the One Ring, which makes all these other rings subservient to his. And so he was able to bind all those rings to his power, and he was able to corrupt all of these races of Middle-earth. So then we get into the War of the Last Alliance, where those who stood up against Sauron, who weren't corrupted, they tried and fight against him in Mordor.
Right.
They were able to defeat him and were able to cut the ring off his finger. But instead of destroying it, the ring had a mind of its own, and it corrupted the wearer. And because of that, the ring still exists into the current day of the Fellowship of the Ring movie. So when we get into the modern day, into present day sort of Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring is in the possession of Bilbo. That is 111th birthday. And he's telling Gandalf, who is the wizard, a very powerful wizard, Gandalf the Grey. And he's telling Gandalf he feels old, but he doesn't look it. He feels like he's stretched over too much bread, like butter over too much bread. And right away, Gandalf is getting suspicious. He knows Bilbo has a ring. He doesn't know if it's the One Ring.
Mm-hmm.
And then we get to one of the first main things that happen in this movie is Bilbo puts on the ring and he disappears. And everybody is shocked.
Mm-hmm.
And Gandalf is shocked as well.
Mm-hmm. What a party trick.
Yeah, I know, absolutely. And then Frodo comes in. And Frodo is Bilbo's nephew. And the main character of our story.
Correct.
And so Frodo is represented as somebody with a strong character, strong moral fiber. He's able to pick up the ring without any influence.
Mm.
And Gandalf is...
Well, not at first.
Yeah, not at first. And Gandalf is shocked about that. Because when Gandalf tried to pick it up, he right away saw this Eye of Sauron. Right? So he right away knew something was evil about it. Frodo just picked it up without a worry in the world.
Yeah.
9 men who were given the rings become evil men who became Nazgul. And they always hunt the ring. They find out that the ring is in the Shire, where Frodo is, and they come and they start hunting him down.
Right.
So Gandalf is basically saying, you have to get out of the Shire.
Yeah.
So then they go to a town called Bree. He's followed by Samwise Gamgee, who is his gardener and good friend. And they bump into 2 other hobbits along the way, Merry and Pippin.
Yeah.
And so the 4 of them...
Useless. Anyway.
Well, at least in the majority of the movie. But yes. So we get into Bree with those 4 hobbits. In Bree, they bump into... Aragorn. So that was really cool as well, because Aragorn is this descendant of the kings of men of Gondor. And so the line of kings has ended, and they are now ruled by stewards of Gondor.
Right.
So the descendants of the kings of Gondor have gone into exile. and Aragorn is now the head of that order. So he's out in the wilds hunting down orcs, and he's a good friend of Gandalf, and he just happens to be in Bree. So he helps them out, and in the ensuing sort of scene in Bree, Frodo puts on the ring. And when he puts on the ring, Sauron is able to see him.
Yeah.
And because he does that, the Nazgul are drawn to his scent.
Right.
So the Nazgul come to Bree. And Aragorn, through some trickery, is able to save the hobbits. And then they're off on an adventure to Rivendell.
Which is the elf kingdom.
Which is the home of the elves, correct, yes. And so, yeah, so then once we get into Rivendell, we are introduced to the other members of the Fellowship.
Mm-hmm.
So there's Boromir, there's Legolas, there's Gimli, and there's Gandalf and the four hobbits. Yeah. So that's 9 members of the Fellowship to counter the 9 members of the Nazgul. And so then basically they go through a council to see what do we do with the ring? How do we destroy it? And naturally Boromir is saying, I don't want to destroy it. We can use it.
Again, it's corrupting the minds of men.
We can use it. We can use it against Sauron.
Yeah.
But then they realize that you can't actually use it because it would corrupt you so quickly.
Right.
So then they decide to destroy it. But who is going to actually take it to Mordor? Frodo, he volunteers to take the ring to Mordor.
Yeah.
And I thought that was very powerful, very strong of him.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, it was because the ring had started to take a hold of him.
Right.
And so even though he had good intentions, you could tell he couldn't bear to be apart from it.
Mm-hmm.
So it was very interesting in that sense. You could even tell on Gandalf's face that he was very disappointed. He wanted Frodo to be free of it.
Right.
But he was the first one to say that he's going to go with Frodo on the journey and he'll guide him. That's in Isengard. They're creating an army of Uruk-hai, which are a mix of orcs and men. And they can move in sunlight, unlike orcs. So Saruman is creating this army to add to Sauron's forces.
Yeah.
And to add to that army to cover all of Middle-earth in a second shadow. So then we get into the journey from Rivendell. They're trying to get to Mordor. But one way is too close to Isengard, so they decide to go over a mountain.
Yeah.
And Sauron is preventing them from doing so with his magic. So they then decide to go under the mountain through Moria, which used to be this grand dwarven kingdom. And Gimli's uncle, Balin, was king of Moria.
Mm-hmm.
So Gimli is suggesting to go through Moria because Balin would welcome him with a royal feast and a royal welcome. Little do they know that the orcs had come and killed every single dwarf in Moria, including Balin.
Really sad.
Including Balin. So they enter Moria and they realize it's a tomb.
Yeah.
But they have no choice because the passage behind them has been sealed. So they have to go through Moria.
Right.
And when they're going through Moria, I think they say it's a 3-day passage from one day to the end. Once they're in Moria, they go into the tomb of Balin. Anyway.
They throw this, no, they throw, but like they touch the skeleton.
It.
The skeleton falls. It creates this huge kaboom.
Mm-hmm.
And then you hear the drums. And I'm like, this is interesting because everyone's preparing for war. And then you just have one orc like, do.
Well, there's actually substance of that in real life.
I know.
In armies, you do have marching bands and you have things like keeping people up to beat in their marching and things like that, right? So it's sensible in a way, but at the same time, like we were joking around, like maybe they were all just sleeping and there's their alarm of just actually waking up. But they soon realize there's a whole bunch of orcs and goblins coming at them and they have a cave troll.
My gosh, yes.
So that whole fight in the tomb of Balin was very well done, I think.
Yeah.
Very surreal, like in a sense where the music is swelling And then as soon as the orcs break through the door, the music just stops.
Mm.
And all you hear is the actual like sounds of the swords and the weapons and the screams and of the goblins and all that when they're attacking. I thought that was really well done and a really good artistic choice, I found. But from there, they then go to the bridge of Khazad-dûm. And they're trying to run and they're surrounded by all these goblins. And then they hear these deep rumbles and
Yeah.
they see fire. And what did they find?
They find the fire monster creature.
The Balrog of Morgoth.
Yes.
And this Balrog
What I meant.
is a huge fire demon with wings, with horns, and lots of fire. The Balrog. But yes. And so they're trying to cross this bridge. So all the orcs and goblins ran away because they're afraid of the Balrog. And the Fellowship has to run across the bridge because they have to get to the other side and get out of Moria. So they're running across the bridge, but then Gandalf realizes that he won't be able to get across in time. So he lets the Fellowship run across and he stops in the middle of the bridge. And what does he say? The most iconic line.
You shall not pass. And then a bunch of lie, and do, bridge falls, Balrog man falls. He's like, we won. And then Gandalf's like, peace, y'all. I won this fight. And then he turns his back and he's like, the Balrog is like, LOL, no you did not. And then his tail thingy majogger, his like,
He had a whip.
hit a whip.
Yeah.
He whipped it. He took Gandalf's foot. Gandalf fell and he was like, fly, you fools. As
there we go to they go through a canoe ride and they make shore at this edge of the waterfall. And they're planning on cutting across land to get into Mordor. So they're gathering firewood. Frodo goes off. Boromir follows him. And Boromir tries and takes the ring from Frodo. And Frodo puts the ring on and runs away. And Sauron sees where Frodo is.
yeah.
And so Frodo takes the ring off, and Aragorn comes. And Frodo is scared because he knows that Boromir just tried to take the ring. Will Aragorn do the same?
Yeah.
So he puts the ring out, and he says, will you protect it? And Aragorn basically closes Frodo's hand over the ring and says, I would have gone with you to the end. Because he knows that Frodo needs to go by himself, needs to separate. And so he looks at Frodo's sword, Sting, and it glows blue in the presence of orcs and goblins. And he sees that it's glowing blue. And then all of a sudden, all the Uruk-hai come crashing through the forest. Aragorn tells Frodo to run, and he holds off the horde as much as he can. And that's just the start of one of the most emotional parts of this movie, I think.
Yeah.
Where you hear the horn of Gondor blowing.
Yeah.
Which means Boromir's calling for aid. And everybody that Aragorn is fighting hears the horns, and they just run around Aragorn and straight to the horns.
Yeah.
And so Boromir is fighting all these people off. He's trying to protect Merry and Pippin. And then there's the chief Uruk-hai who comes, aims an arrow, and shoots Boromir 3 times in the chest. And it's just sad because it's not in quick succession.
Yeah.
He gets hit once, he continues to fight, continues to protect the hobbits, because in that sense, it's his redemption.
Yeah.
He failed Frodo,
Yeah.
but if he's able to protect these hobbits, he can feel as if he's
He
worthy.
died for a purpose.
He died as a hero.
Yeah.
And so he continues to defend them. He tells the hobbits to run. And then he gets a second arrow. And you can tell he's winded, he's hurt, he's on the ground. Then more Uruk-hai come around him. He gets back up and he continues to fight with 2 arrows in his chest. Then he gets the third, and then he's done. He's on the ground, he can't get up. He's done. And the Uruk-hai captured the hobbits, Merry and Pippin.
I mean, I definitely
Is-
think that redemption was important
Mhm.
because the scene before that, you're so disgusted by him, you're so upset. You're just kind of like, are you kidding me? Everybody's trying to protect this ring, and you come along and feels like you're not part of this team. And then you turn around into these scenes, and it's just you feel so bad, and you feel like he really truly was a hero deep dive inside that just had a moment of weakness. So
yeah, like you could definitely see the dichotomy of like the weakness of man in that sense, where the greed and the power and the hunger for power comes out, and even though you're trying to be the best person you can be, there's all these different forces that eat away at your morals and your values. And
yeah, I mean, that was a lot. I know there's a lot that happens. I mean, it is a 3-hour movie, but basically sets it up for the next two. What would you say was your favorite character? You get one.
In this movie, it has to be Gandalf.
Okay.
Like I feel like Gandalf had so many important moments, and he had so many quotable lines. Like even if you look at even current day, if you look at like posts about being positive and things like that, you'll see Gandalf's lines, and they're just so iconic. And the fact that the actor who plays Gandalf, Ian McKellen, he got nominated for an Oscar for this movie is telling about just how amazing he actually was. And I'm sure many of you will agree when you actually, if you have seen the movie or when you actually do end up deciding to see the movie, that his performance carries the movie. And I think that's why when he ends up dying, it's such a heartfelt moment.
Yeah.
Because he's such a major character and he's played so well, he leaves such a hole when he's gone.
Interesting. Yeah, I definitely think that Gandalf was an amazing character. He contributes a lot to the Fellowship. He contributed so much to this movie. But actually, my favorite character had to be Aragorn in this movie. I think the same kind of reasons that you were talking about. He was such a profound character. Viggo Mortensen, he's such an amazing actor. He really gets you involved in how he's feeling. I felt like constantly when he was on screen, I felt like exactly as if he was here with me. I think the amount of times he sacrificed his life for the hobbits in that movie was astounding, especially since he didn't know them. He just took their word for it that they were good people with the ring and they wanted to destroy it. And I think without him and his character in this movie, it would have been over. There was no way that the hobbits would have been able to survive without him. And he continues to show his valiant nature throughout the trilogy, and it's amazing.
I think that's why the Fellowship of the Ring is just that. It's a fellowship. It's a team.
Yeah.
Without one member of that team, it collapses.
Yeah, maybe without Merry and Pippin, though, they would be better off. But that's okay.
Well, maybe in the beginning of the movie, they were there to help support the hobbits. They helped them escape. They helped them get on the ferry.
Yeah. And then we should have just thrown them off the ferry.
Get rid of them at that point. But yeah,
but they bring the heartfelt nature to the movie. I think this is the first of 3 movies, so it's the lightest. It's I think even you were talking about it's actually the brightest of all 3 movies.
Yeah, in terms of literally, it's the brightest.
Light,
like you see sun, you see like light,
you see people smiling.
Yeah.
It continues to get even darker and darker throughout, and the themes get thicker. So I would say maybe Merry and Pippin were there just for that. It was to bring a little bit of comedic relief, a little bit of sigh to kind of break the tension a little bit.
But also they do have their moments of redemption in the next movies as well. But in this movie, I think
this movie in particular.
I think in this movie in particular, they were more meant for comedic relief.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I'm gonna challenge you.
Cool.
You need to give me one critique of this movie because I know you love it so much.
Okay. Critique.
Okay, you think about it, I'll go first. I know that it was meant to set up the trilogy, but it was very slow. It was incredibly slow. You really have to be dedicated. This is my opinion. You have to be truly dedicated to getting through the movie in order to watch the second and third movie, which in my opinion was fantastic, miles beyond this movie. But for me, it was incredibly thick and slow.
All right. Well, you're subject to your opinion. For me, if anything, I'd say it's a long movie.
Yeah.
Like it's filled with amazing things. So when I'm watching it, I don't really feel the runtime, but I can definitely see how people being introduced to the fantasy genre or people being introduced to the IP in general, sitting and watching a 3 hour movie when perhaps they're not used to sitting down and watching those long movies anymore. I can definitely see how that could be an issue keeping people's attention. But I think there is enough nuance and there's enough interesting things, even in backgrounds, not so much what's happening in the foreground, but there's interesting things happening in the background. There's interesting things happening just in terms of dialogue. There's enough there to keep you entertained and keep you interested in the subject matter. And there are, action sequences that keep you at the edge of your seat, and obviously emotional moments as well. So I would say that it is a bit long, but I do say that I think it makes up for it in those aspects as well.
All right. So our ratings.
4.5 out of 5 for me.
Okay, I would say a 3 out of 5. I absolutely love the second and third movies, so you will see that my ratings go up, especially as we rewatch them for the channel. I think they're nostalgic. For this movie in particular, I think, like I said, it was a little bit slow, but I think it was necessary to set up the remaining the remaining 2 movies of the trilogy. If you watch it once, I would skip it and then go to the second or third movie. So.
Don't listen to her. Watch it, enjoy it. Have an open mind going into it. Have an open mind going into it. And let us know in the comments below what you thought about the movie. If you were more on my side, if you were more on her side. And
I just want to say, we had a guest over to watch the show or the movie with us, and he agrees with me. So put it down in the comments below and let's see which one wins. Is it Adam or is it me?
So we had a guest over who agreed with her, but meanwhile, everybody who actually went to go see the movie
30 years ago
absolutely loved it, and here we are. So you tell us what you think, and
we'll see which one of us wins. Let us know. Bye.